financial cybersecurity, cyber incidents in the financial services industry has been around for decades, and in fact, financial services sector is probably one of the first, if not, I think one of the first, if not the first sector to be really targeted by threat actors obviously because of the money involved and also because of the personal information that's involved. We've seen, I think back in almost 3 decades ago, right? That was when the then US President, was it Bill Clinton, that was so concerned about the extent of the cyber incidents in the financial services sector that he has a directive saying that, okay, we need to set up the world's first ever information sharing center on cybersecurity in financial services. So that was the first one. So that was 3 decades ago. And then after that, we obviously have all sorts of different attacks in the financial services industry, like credit cards, ATM, point of sale scheming, right? That was really, really popular about 20 years ago. And then we obviously now have fraud and scam, which many people have talked about in this summit. And just a couple of days ago, we have this biggest Bybit incident with 1.5 billion US dollars that was taken, which I think a lot of people here will be interested to understand what is happening behind the scenes of that one. So so for this panel, so we'll talk about some of these evolving threats, right? Because of changing technology, obviously AI, and then we have quantum and blockchain, right? And how that impacts the threat landscape, as well as how it affects the way that we defend our infrastructure. And then we'll just, so those 2 big themes, and then we'll have one quick takeaway for everybody to take home with in terms of how you protect your banking and also for your organizations as well. So before we kick off, I'd just like to give a chance, 30 seconds for everyone to sort of introduce themselves. Edwin, you want?
Hi, my name is Edwin. I run a technology and cybersecurity company. We have a group company, so we do services. We do a lot of work with the civil government and government-linked companies. Also, we help a lot of fintechs, and I'll touch briefly on it. We also build our own cybersecurity software, so look forward to engaging with you all.
Hey, hi everyone, thanks so much for having me. My name is Jack from Safeheron. So we are a partner. I'm a partner in this. We are digital asset security platform using advanced cryptography to help our clients to enhance security as well as to strengthen governance in terms of digital asset management, while also having them to be regulatory compliant. So our full range of services includes hot, warm, as well as cold vaults, spanning different deployment options, covering SaaS, hybrid, as well as current deployment model. And for some of our clients, especially our bank clients who requires more flexibility as well as control over the infrastructure, we have our white label customizable solution as well. So we serve a full range of clients across the blockchain industry, from OTC desks to payments to exchanges, and recently more and more stablecoins issuer. Just a very quick note about our company name, because our name is Safeheron, so some people think that our company has something to do with birds because heron thinks a bird. But what we will say is that with our clients, their assets are safe from here on. So that's the main timing. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Mark.
That was a good one, actually. Doesn't work. It's turn on. No, that should be a button. Oh, it's okay. It's working. I'll speak louder on this one. My name is Mrak. I'm the Chief Product Officer from Partisia, Danish company, doing advanced cryptography also, more in the privacy-enhancing technology space. I did a talk yesterday about AML. We also do confidential AI, we do quantum security, and a lot of work in that field. We run a public blockchain, fancy stuff all over the place. I think we've been around. I'm looking forward to this panel discussion.
You guys are.
Yes. We are sitting down there. I can say our name comes from parties computing together, actually.
Oh, okay.
I find it funny because my organizations are a little bit more literal, Center for AI Leadership, so I'm Ethan. So I run a non-profit called Center for AI Leadership. We focus very much on the fact that GenAI is changing the platform. We're not seeing enough leadership on the ground, so we're trying to create the leadership to make it happen. On the other side, I'm actually running a cybersecurity training company called Practical Cyber, so again, very more literal names, where I focus on making cybersecurity practical for businesses. So I kind of do the blend of the two worlds because AI needs a lot of security, which nobody talks about. So that's what I focus on.
All right, I'm Lucky Lance. Alright, hello everyone. So my name is Farrell Tirtadinata. So I'm the global head of solutions at a company called Avertro. So we are an Australian company, even though I'm based here. I kind of jump around in Perth, in Western Australia, and Singapore, and I do have global remit. What our company does, we have a platform called CyberHQ that helps organizations automate their governance, risk, and compliance. Also simulate attack path and threat scenarios and quantify risks. Starting from a cyber-specific standpoint, but it can also handle anything cyber adjacent, including especially all these new AI regulations, frameworks, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah.
So yeah, really looking forward to the session as well. So thank you.
Yeah, so I forgot to mention, if you guys got any questions, you can always put out your hand during the panel or after the questions. So if I could just start with the first thing, which is about the threat landscape. If I start from the right, with Edwin, because you have almost 3 decades. I was reading your profile. You have almost 3 decades in cybersecurity. So you were almost kind of there when the first ever cybersecurity, the world's first cybersecurity information sharing center was set up, right? So what have you seen in the last decades of your experience in this sector that really stand out for you in terms of how the threat actors are sophistication and techniques and what really impressed you?
Well, I think one thing is the speed of attacks, and of course the speed of your vulnerability is all just simply accelerated. Right, back then, like 30 years ago, I'm not that old, right? I started when I was my teenager with Accenture. At that time, I was Anderson Consulting. So that's why 30 over here, right? At that time, things like technology was used by information workers. And the normal person in the street, sometimes they don't even have a computer at home. So therefore, the digital, threats were not even there. But now everyone has a digital device on your pocket, your phone, on your watch, IoTs, everything. So the attack surface has increased, definitely, right? And the speed of which these attackers are getting at us are also, vastly, accelerated.
Yeah, everything is just expanded and faster, isn't it? And now, obviously, with all the new technologies, which I'm sure AI is going to be a favorite topic with everyone, but blockchain as well, that's a pretty big technology that's on the horizon, and with Bybit, which is the 1.5 billion problem. And Jack has a lot of opinions and views on it. So tell us about what you see in terms of the threat actors, tactics and sophistication tools, methods that really stand out for you.
Yeah, sure. So before I just go into the details, right? I came from a physical security background, and back then it's like if I want to get the assets, especially like in a local context, I have to break past an office, break past the physical protection. But in the blockchain world, where everything is online and assets are all available online because it's transparent on blockchain. Attackers can come from Korea, from Russia, and it's really a borderless ecosystem, right? So in the digital asset space, we have seen that there's a rising surge in attacks. Like last year, in the whole 2024, there were already more than $1 billion worth of assets that was being compromised, and a lot of it was due in large part to compromise of the private key, right? So for those who are not sure, private key is the digital credentials that you use to prove your ownership of assets. And then we have seen an increasing trend where very advanced social engineering techniques and sophisticated phishing tactics has been used. And we just look at the records. Last year there was DMM Bitcoin, 10x Exchange, and then there's Radio Capital that were all compromised because of advanced phishing tactics. And just like last week, as Jane has mentioned, Bybit was compromised to the tune of $1.5 billion. That's like the largest hack ever, and that again involved the use of phishing tactics whereby the signers were tricked into signing a malicious transaction which they thought was legitimate, right? But in actual fact, converting the control of the wallets to the attacker. And that is a huge problem, and we think that it's not going to be the first and certainly not going to be the last.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you a question later for takeaway, how consumers can protect themselves against these phishing attacks, right? So Mark, yesterday you have a presentation on multi-party computation, and you also are involved in quantum security. So what are some of the drivers that you see in the threat landscape that compel you to drill into these areas?
Yeah, so I think naturally when we look into new areas that's coming, right? Quantum key distribution, quantum algorithms, quantum computers coming down the line at some point, 10 years, 5 years, whatever. What we're really afraid of, especially from a European context, for instance, is this harvest now, decrypt later.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I just start harvesting all trading data in the world. I keep it stored over here. I wait on this quantum computer, and then I break everything. Right? So if we start looking at trading models just 10 years back, right? What is the predictive market based on that? What kind of algorithms can I actually do on top of it? What kind of AI could I build on top of trading algorithms coming from this? So I think, for me, it's two aspects. I'll actually piggyback a bit on yours. One is an attack pattern that's outside of this. It's just the complexity of keeping something safe, right? And over the years, just the complexity of having encryption being good enough that everyone understands it. How would I, as a normal person, not break cryptography in a sense? Because I have no idea how to navigate it. There is a bit of teaching in business. And the second thing is all these patents, all these superpowers coming in, whether that is generative AI or it's quantum computing or something else. How do we take care of understanding the protection mechanisms of that, right? Because I deliver MPC, that's brilliant. But for the average business coming in and saying, hey, by the way, I deliver MPC, it's quantum safe, they will look at me like I'm strange and saying, could you maybe explain that in words I understand? I think that's a very big thing in the threat modeling of what we have, phishing and everything else, understanding and being able to navigate those technologies and trusting that we're protecting ourselves against at the same time.
Yeah, I think that fits in very well with what Ethan is doing in terms of education and awareness. How do you so before we get into that, right? So what are the kind of interesting observations that you have about the threat landscape that impress you in terms of the threat actor's sophistication?
Well, let's so advent of ChatGPT, increase of spam mail and quality of spam mail just went through the roof. Thousands of percent increase, right? So it's not thousands of not thousands of emails, thousands of percent of increase of emails. Spear phishing becomes so much easier. Needle in the haystack searches is super easy. Now that we had the Microsoft leaks and a lot of this encrypted data that now post-quantum is having fun with. One of the major factors about all of this is I really see, Journey AI is just accelerating what humans have been doing all along. For me, that's just the basic way of looking at it. One of my favorite books called Liars and Outliers by Bruce Schneier, which is a famous cryptographer. He was talking about how society naturally has the liars and the outliers, right? So the outliers who do good can do a lot of good, but the ones who go further out and can do a lot of harm. One of the biggest things is, are we empowering the enemies more, the attackers way more than we're empowering the defenders? And very often, in his book, he actually talked a lot about how we spend too much money on offense, too little on defense. And I think right now we're at a cusp where, even in cybersecurity, we're seeing a lot more money going to offense in a lot of different ways, and a lot of people not finding defense sexy enough for them to enter that field too, and therefore grow in that space, and therefore having that reaction as well. So till today, whether is it sports or anything, the defender is not the most sexy position to have. I think in cybersecurity is very similar, and in AI, absolutely so. The people who are doing the back-end work other than DeepSeek recently would not be having any glory. It's a lot of these little things that we are seeing a lot more showcasing of, I would say, human society and human nature coming through, and that's where AI is really bringing it out of the picture.
Alright, very philosophical. Before we get into that, Farrell, what is your take on the threat landscape and what really sort of stand out for you in the last 10 years or 20 years you've been in the industry?
I know all the different stories that you've been telling us, this reminds me of how old we are. I was like, oh my god, I remember
experienced.
How experienced we all are. I think from our point of view, it's actually taking it back to the basics. I know it's not the sexiest thing, and of course, no one really likes regulations or compliance requirements and everything, but there is if you take it into account that they're there as a security, not as a compliance. I think I know Ethan and I, in the past 2 years that we've been just catching up randomly, we always joke about, okay, well, people only care about are we ISO certified, or are we certified this and that. But, and then, there was a Singapore company that they got hacked, or there was like, and then basically say, oh, how can we get hacked? We are ISO certified. And they're just like, no, that's not how it works.
We're magically immune.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think looking at that and just basically going back to the basics, as I mentioned before, and just like what are the controls you have in place, and how does that apply? You can apply that to everything from a cyber-specific standpoint, throughout the AI regulations. I know there are some simpler ones out there. I think OS top 10 for LLM was quite simple.
Yeah.
You can look at, especially even from a quantum technology. I think a number of the latest updates with regulations or frameworks already included. Are you prepared about this? What are these controls, and what are the things that you may need to do? So look at all those things. And once again, I'm saying it for the third time. Definitely, keep the basics in check. Then, of course, there are going to be all these sophisticated things. But coming back to what Jack mentioned as well, right? I mean, some of the biggest, attacks out there stems from a phishing attack. Someone literally just clicks an email, like some random guy just clicks an email, guy or girl or anyone, person, clicks an email. Mostly guys, actually, the last couple of ones. And then suddenly, stuff hits the fan.
Right, okay, yes, so that takes us to the next theme, which is about cyber defense, right? So we are talking about how some of these emerging technologies has changed the threat landscape, but on the other hand, how has it enabled or empowered, the cyber defenders at the same time? So let me start with you, since you are holding the mic, right? So you talk about the basics, right? But what about AI and blockchain or quantum? How is that empowering cyber defenders? I think AI, there's some very clear cases, but I'm not sure about quantum or blockchain.
Yeah, so I'll introduce or reintroduce the term of the threat-informed defense. So I guess for people out here who's interested in it, I know there's an organization called MITRE, M-I-T-R-E, and they have a framework called MITRE Attack, so A-T-T, and then instead of an A, it's an ampersand icon, and then CK, yeah, that's right, thanks. And then also, and that's actually looking at what are the threat pathways, what are the tactics that attackers actually utilize. Now, by applying AI capabilities or Gen AI capabilities, it will increase your ability to defend, because you can then start simulating what are, let's just say, okay, there's a blog post from CrowdStrike. You can easily utilize a Gen AI engine and look at everything. What are the threat tactics that's been, recorded or that's been mentioned within that, and then apply it into your own environment, looking at what controls you have in place. Are we covered here? Are we covered there? And then that way, I'm utilizing AI, and then later on potentially even quantum computing. Then of course, with quantum computing, at the end of the day, it's just a really, really fast computer. So you can do whatever you're doing that usually maybe takes weeks. Now you can do it in days or even hours. So once again, applying all that and then using all this technology and making defending, as Ethan said, sexier.
Right, incentivize the cyber defenders, right? And Ethan was also saying earlier, right? How can we ensure that these tools, it's always a cat and mouse game between the cyber defenders and the threat actors. How can we be ahead of the game using these tools, or are we always playing defense perpetually?
We have to perpetually play defense, because if you look at it, the moment ChatGPT came out, the thing that came up was not more defenders or better defense, it was more attacks. So when we talk about this, again, a little bit philosophical again, but going back to, humans have always used their weapons for offense before they use it for defense. And that's one of the major things that we do notice. And especially as organizations, we're always playing defense and playing catch up with all the latest trends. But I think it goes back to first principles again, right? ISO ISO 27001 is not a cert to say hi, I'm immune. It's just a way of saying, hey, I followed the controls that is gold standard. The actual security, so it was really interesting because I have a good friend who is a really good red teamer and overall a cyber consultancy company. His client hired him even though they were hiring the Big Four to do the audit on the other side. They were hiring him to do the actual work. So they paid double. And then he was asked, why are you paying double? And they said, you do the actual work, they do the audit. So when we talk about this, when they understand the difference between compliance and security, it makes a lot of difference. And these are very mature companies that have, who are really trying to protect what assets they have. And once you start seeing these kind of examples, you start realizing that, hey, not everybody's aware that this is what's happening. So again, knowledge is power, first up. And there's a lot of noise right now. So let's put it another way. The amount of news that's coming out right now, that's Gen AI created as well, is insane. Like if you go online anywhere, the amount of, you just Google anything now, right? Most of the time, the first 3 pages that appears are probably AI generated by somebody, right? So one of the biggest issues you have right now is misinformation, lack of information. So very much education, very much engagement with people on those grounds will be a very major part of defense, and definitely building up the capabilities. And on the side note of that, AI poses a new threat to all of us, is that most people don't understand how it works and therefore they use it wrongly. And so this is why it's really important that we need to know what we're dealing with, and that's really the key. It's just know.
Yeah. So later I'll also come back to you on takeaways for organizations and users, given all these concerns. Mark. Mm-hmm. Yes. So multi-party computation and quantum and all that, right?
Yes.
You talked about a lot yesterday. So these are technologies that you believe does help the cyber defenders to protect their assets.
Part of it, yeah, part of it, definitely. I would actually reiterate yours. It's very important having the right processes and governance for security to work. If we then go into the nitty-gritty part of the tech, right, you have NIST in the US coming out with protocols saying, well, there is quantum secure protocols, but is anyone here from a large bank here in Singapore outside currently? Oh, yes, there was one. I'll guarantee you, I go to any large bank in the world, I've been there in many, and I ask them, so your encryption protocols you use today, are they quantum safe? They will say no. And I'll say, hey, how long would it take you to do a full revocation and have everything encrypted in a quantum secure protocol? Maybe 10 years, right? It's process, it's governance, it takes time, right? So I think what comes back to this is saying that quantum will help in some cases of knowing what new attack patterns does there exist and how to become quantum safe. We assume we know them all, we don't. There's a lot of new things coming in. At the same time, something like MPC is using non-primitives that are in a state where you will actually end up attacking them with a quantum computer and break it, right? So we can talk prime numbers, prime factorization, quantum computer, we expect it can break very quickly. Yeah. So we should do other things based on that, right? Whether that is MPC or standardized NIST protocols or something else. So the journey through this is good governance, and it's people that are very good at algorithms and quantum encryption and AI governance, right? And all of that will give you over the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years an environment where we assume, even though you harvest my data, you will not be able to decrypt it.
Yeah, so, right. Good governance, awareness, education, get the basics right, get it right. So in the brave new world of blockchain, right, all these are applied up there in terms of how we can protect ourselves in Web3. So the basics, awareness, and also good governance.
Yeah, because we talked about AI just now, right? I thought I'd just use this opportunity to share, like the threat actors, you know, they're definitely using AI in terms of targeting, right, victims, and we actually being part of the security provider, so we are at the front lines, and we've seen that we've seen actually cases where our clients were targeted by the North Koreans, and there was this particular case whereby one of our clients was doing a large transfer. They were sending about, I think, maybe 6 figures transfer over Tron blockchain, and like literally within seconds, right? And attackers start spamming the transaction, their history, spamming them with spam transactions. What they wanted to achieve was that they sent them for wallets that very closely mimic their sending wallets. So what they wanted the victim was that he would check his transaction history and then he would copy for some reason, the recipient's address, which is actually the attacker's address, and in future, because they look so similar, like the first few characters and the last few characters of the address look so similar, that he would transfer to the attacker's address. And the user or the guy or client actually fell for it. Right? It actually fell for it, and to us it was amazing because it happened very soon after he made the transactions, and straight away the spam transaction comes in, and that actually was another side of it, was that our system actually detected there was a phishing, and the transaction actually flagged out, right? But we were very, very shocked that the user actually went ahead to whitelist the address, and despite the fact that it was supposed to have approvals. You see, so I wanted to move past just the AI, but the AI part, that of course there's AI tools to detect phishing, but a lot of this actually comes up to the user themselves, the vigilance in terms of checking, reviewing, and we realized that even in a situation where they had 2 parties to review, both people didn't check, and the moment they whitelist the address, that's it. Because the next transaction going out, they will just use the whitelisted address, assuming that is the legit address. And so that was a very sad case. But
so the problem just cascade then, yes.
Exactly, and that's why users, many times we say that users is the weakest link in the chain is the user, right? You are only as strong as the weakest link in the chain.
Right. Okay. Yes. So Edwin, yes. So I don't want to talk about your depth of experience, but you have exposure to different industries, and financial services is not just one of them, right? So how do you see the differences or the similarities in terms of how organizations protect themselves, especially given these emerging technologies?
Yeah. So there are a lot of similarities across any industry, whether it's government, financial sector, etc. Right? We talk about technology, AI, quantum, blockchain. All these are tools, right? We talk about ISO, like processes. All these are good. And then most recently, Jack was talking about people is the weakest link, right? I know a government, let's just say a government official who's a friend. Recently there was this OCBC phishing attack, I think 2 years ago, right? So he was like, no, we need to put technology in place to protect the citizens. I said, no, I beg to differ. You don't need more technology. Because the more technology you put to defend, the hackers will know how to circumvent that technology. You need to educate the people, right? Because ultimately, the people is the weakest link, right? How well trained your people are is how well defended your organization will be. Because it just takes one weak link, one phishing click. Okay, maybe you have anti-phishing, but it may be offline, right? Social engineering. They social engineer the person gives the credentials, and then it's not even that person acting now, it's someone else already social engineered the credentials. Like you go to a Singapore hawker center, what do you see? You see people putting their staff passes on the table. I actually have always very high temptation to just take that staff pass, go to their office and go in, and if I get stopped, I say, no, I'm a cybersecurity expert, I'm here to give you a report that you just have gotten social engineered. Here's the invoice from my company. I feel very tempted to do that. Right? All these are like big companies, banks too, right? It's just maybe we should do that, huh? As an exercise, a homework. Tomorrow when you go to a hawker center, just pick up some random people who choke their seat using their staff pass and then just go to the office. Yeah.
Right. It takes there's a thinking outside the box, right? Yes, yeah. So you brought a very good. You guys brought up a few sort of very good points. Mainly, education awareness, right? And phishing as well. How it has gone really more and more sophisticated as a result of Gen AI, right? It really has lowered the barriers of entry for any sort of novice cyber criminals. Even if you are not proficient in Japanese, you can write a fluent Japanese phishing email, no problem, right? So that makes awareness and education really a difficult challenge to tackle. Let me just start from that side, right? So you brought up education awareness, and this example, this really temptation for you to just do some red teaming exercise to
What do you mean teaming exercise?
red teaming exercise. How would you propose to organizations and even perhaps your employees, how would you tell them not to, to repeat some of these vulnerable methods that could be exploited by threat actors or good-hearted white hats?
Yeah, I know we don't have a lot of time, right? But I think the adage is true. People don't do what you say. People do what you do, right? You must, as a leader, set the example. As a parent at home, you need to practice good cyber hygiene, right? As maybe somebody in a church or a temple or whatever, you need to help your organizations, to practice all this good hygiene. Right, organizations like ourselves, banks and all that, you have all the budgets in the world, right? But ultimately, it still will not protect you from that social engineering that will happen on the street. So, yeah.
Right, Jack. I think for me, what will work well is if I get phished once, that will leave a really deep lesson for me. But that's just my personal view.
Yeah, actually, maybe I could use the Bybit case as an example because they were in a way also social engineered, right? If I could just recap a bit, the reason why that happened was because the signer was tricked into signing, right, a malicious transaction. And if you look into the details of what happened, they were actually using Safe. So Safe is a smart contract wallet. But the thing about Safe is that when you do the signing, right, all your signer's details as well as the multi-signature policies is all transparent on chain. So I'm an attacker, I know all the wallet addresses, and I can find the wallet addresses and try to dox, right, who are the people behind it. And as well as, okay, I would know what's the signing threshold. So I just need to, maybe 6 people, just 3, I just need to go, I need to compromise them. So first thing first, we work for a lot of institutions and we always advise them is that please, as far as possible, if you are private institutions, keep all your sensitive data private, right? Your signing policies and your signer's data is no business to any other people, right? Transactions can be transparent on blockchains, but signing data and policies shouldn't be, right? Advise them to use privacy-preserving technologies. For example, multi-party computation is one because the signing is done off-chain. Have in place a multi-layer security architecture. So for example, we use MPC, we use trusted execution environment to encrypt and secure all our sensitive data. One important part of a zero trust architecture that we put in place is that you need to have what you see is what you sign. So the infrastructure that was used by Bybit, right, they didn't have that capability. So what they see was not what they signed, right? So this is so important, right? And the other part was that we talk about systems. We should also talk about risk management. And it was crazy because they had $1.5 billion worth of assets under a single wallet. If they had split it up just to 3 parts or 5 parts, then they wouldn't have been the largest, the claimant would be the largest victim in history, right? And one also important part is that it's very critical that the users especially will need to keep at the forefront of technology. And previously it was speculated that users had their devices compromised by malware, but now it seems to be that the safe, the version that we're using was the one that was being compromised.
Yeah.
Right, okay. I think that's a lot of information there, and I'm still processing it, but while I'm processing it, if I may come to the mark. Right, so earlier, you talked about how some of the challenges involved in getting organizations to understand some of the technologies, right? What are some of the successes that you see in that, enable the organization to actually understand principles?
That's a very good question. So I get from a European perspective for a second here. So Europe very early here decided something like DORA, right? Large regulation coming in across the financial industry, stating that every single financial institution should operate in a secure manner. And if we then dive deep into DORA, you will find patents on what type of encryption technologies are going to use, decentralization of data, protection mechanisms of data, de-risking of data at the same time. Don't put 1.5 billion in one place. That seems very simple to do, but we all learn. Elements like that, saying when institutions are kind of getting parts of these regulations, that has been good. It's not enough. But I think that the larger challenge of this, to be honest, and that includes both institutions, but also us as individuals, even though you have an education in computer science and cybersecurity, it is freaking hard. It is so tricky getting through and understanding it's correct what you're actually trying to do, right? I can do a proof of multi-party computation on the wall, one line wrong, and have broken my own protocol, right? So part of that is also being able to incorporate and have open standards for a lot of this, open audits, and having banks and institutions, healthcare going together and saying most of what we do kind of stems from the base of the same type of protection, right? Encryption, right? Way of computing, way of storing data, right? And we have seen cases now where especially on the European side, where large healthcare providers across Europe have gone together with insurance companies saying, I have a lot of data, you have a lot of data. Are we doing the same things? We're not. Is that stupid? Yeah, it's pretty stupid. Maybe we should do something else, right? Should we do open auditing? That would make sense to do. Audit reports come out, right? Maybe we will governance them a bit, right? But they still come out. And I think that move towards having open standards and understanding those is good. But at the same time, also being honest that nobody here, even us that maybe have been in the industry for a while, will understand everything. So we need each other for helping this along. Right?
Yeah, I agree. I think some of these high-profile phishing incidents that we've seen was also targeting IT specialists, cybersecurity specialists, right? Especially on LinkedIn recruitment scams and stuff like that. So all of us have a common vulnerability, which is, we want a better job, we want, more money, and these vulnerabilities are targeted. So coming to you, Ethan, you are in the education, raising awareness. So what are some of the challenges that you've seen, and what has worked well so far?
So what I've always been doing is dealing with the fact that what we need to do is what we term as change management today. And if you know anything about change management, it's the hardest things to do in organizations. So let alone adopting AI is a huge topic now. I'm actually talking to a lot of companies, and you start realizing that they don't know how to begin. So let alone there's like cybersecurity teams and adopting cyber awareness as a way of thinking. I think one of the biggest mistakes that we're having all along is we think that didactic lessons, meaning I shove information into your face, equals good enough. I think we need to recognize that humans come with their assumptions and their beliefs, and the only way to change the way people think is to engage them with their beliefs and their knowledge, and then helping them change that. But that requires nuance. So the good part about AI is that comes in potentially for personalization. That's where education can come in very useful. So just to give you as part of the perspective, we're running an AI bootcamp right now that is empowering software engineers to develop AI generated software. Now people can develop, so somebody just created 3 apps in one day. One is a physio appointment booking app, one is a calendar app to move things around, and the other one is a Tinder swipe for food, for people to decide what to eat for lunch. So, which is a smart move because you start realizing, actually if people can't make a decision, it all produced in 3 hours. So the ease of developing right now is very high as well. The amount of security issues that will come with it, super high as well. But the interesting part here is that there is a potential for customization all of a sudden. If you have the right team of software engineers, the right security processes, it is able to start educating people on the ground, on a daily level even, with what can be easily generated and thrown away. Again, in the last 2 months, my team at Center for AI Leadership, the two co-founders of mine, have generated, so Manu has his own challenge of 2 apps a day, of which one app could be, he created a Dungeons and Dragon self-talking agent machine that's able to run on its own on his DeepSeek. So things like this are really, really amazing. And the thing is that if you think about it, right, if we use this in the right use cases, we can educate a lot of people, engage them on a different level. The other part about this is, if I have to go into our version of psychology that we're teaching today, that's another story on its own. Just to give you background, I was a medical student, I studied psychiatry, so that's the reason why I have my opinions on this. So, but with this, it's possible to actually start impacting people because AI gives us this superpower. And again, thanks to DeepSeek and whatever is going to come next in the next 3 months, that will increase power by another 50% and another 10% and whatever different things. I believe that eventually it will be on our phones where we can even develop, we can create content that is relevant and customized to each person, that is data protecting, that is privacy preserving, and definitely more useful for each person as well.
Yeah, so personalized training really, yeah. Oh, cool, okay, so Farrell.
All right, I think there's definitely a lot of information.
You're also digesting.
I'm digesting, but I'm trying to actually then kind of, and first of all, I appreciate, I guess, my fellow panelists agreeing in terms, especially you, Mark, with the whole governance from a basic standpoint. It still bubbles up to that. So probably one thing that I can mention as well is more about, look, especially for everyone here that's working in any organization. Like at the end of the day, you still need to report back, or you still need to create that story, and I wouldn't say convince, but actually just let people know who are making decisions, your executives, your CFOs, on the why you need, or we need as an organization, we need to do this. Again, it can be blockchain technology, it can be AI, it can be a thing, but once again, from a security standpoint, why? And I think we're all aware of what is the typical way that most organizations do it, or most news organizations do it, would be like FUD, which is fear, uncertainty, doubt, doom and gloom and everything like that. I mean, yeah, that can work once in a while, but I think a more positive story is more than, okay, like we are doing this, we're getting ISO certified, but we want to do more like this continuous controls monitoring, continuous controls improvement, which equals more security, which equals less risk, which equals better outcome for our clients, for our end clients. So I mean, these are kind of stories that I think we all need to start thinking about to be able to then, once again, going back to the education, and this will then make it easier to help educate. And coming back to the technology side of things, there are technologies out there. You can utilize AIs to then start mapping all these things. When you're speaking to CFOs, of course, they'll be asking, what is the risk? What is, give me a dollar figure. Then yeah, I mean, there's all these like simulations, or I think our platform utilizes this Monte Carlo simulation. In the last 3 months, I've actually been kind of knee-deep in it. My CEO literally just told me, like, that's not supposed to be what I do, but my CEO just told me, hey, Farrell, you need to be an expert in this, read this book. Yep. And actually books. And I got PTSD from my engineering statistics back in uni, but I got through it, and it is actually quite fascinating. So yeah, if you want to go deep into it, you can, but once again, I'll just bring it back. The full time that I was saying is bring it back to basic governance and storytelling. So that's probably where I'll leave it.
Oh, cool. Okay. Before we go on to the sort of quick takeaway for everybody, I just want to see if anyone has a question for our panelists on how to safeguard your money from hackers. Oh, no question. Okay. Don't put all your money in one bank.
One wallet.
I like the statement that you made. We're obviously intaking a lot of information, or information is shoved into our faces. And you talked about personalizing that information. How do you do that at scale?
So, I'm working very much on this, but I think it requires you to profile each person effectively. My problem is I disagree with most profiling methods. So another pet peeve of mine. But there will be a point where we can find enough patterns within people's thinking processes to be able to break it down and help them identify their thought processes and therefore address each of those beliefs. For example, sorry, a little bit of a plug. I'm releasing an open source book about cybersecurity and making it practical for business owners. And one of the biggest things is I like to address the fact that most business owners I know think that cybersecurity is really expensive, but they don't realize the cost of not having cybersecurity. So again, a company I know got ransomware 3 times, each time about $2 to $3 million lost. To them, it's cheap compared to the cost of setting up proper systems. So, which is about $8,000 a month. So I was like, whoa. One of the biggest reasons is because there is an assumption that it won't happen to them, and there's actually a fear of addressing that issue. So if I can identify this, and this is what I do a lot when I talk to different people, is A, you particularly avoid this topic about why do you do that? And when you can start confronting it, you can start actually addressing the issue. But until the day that you can identify people's fears and what they're not willing to address, you can't change their behaviors. So if you talk to most big companies and even big organizations, whether it's a government or whatever, the reason why they very often feel that they don't need, they're helpless or they can't do much about it is because there's already controls. There's all these things in place. They're not taking part. They're not a person who's taking charge of this situation. They're fearful. They don't have the knowledge. And the only way to solve this is to address all of them, and suddenly they become part of the picture rather than the weakest link.
I think I can kind of identify with that on a day-to-day basis. Like, I think I'm healthy, and therefore I don't buy health insurance, but you never know. Like one day. Sorry, it's meant to be a joke.
You did, and it's by organization, but within an organization, there's so many different people, and they process information very differently. And how do you get that to that level, in an organization?
So on a cultural level, I look at it. So it's work culture, right? So Chinese saying, if the top is not straight, the bottom will work. One of the biggest mistakes I do see in most organizations is and when we talk about Asia, most of us are here, Asians. So power distance is very high. That means the people at the top can do a lot of things that the people at the bottom can't do. As long as that happens, security will actually not be a very big topic within the company. So because everybody will fight to be the top, so they are free of responsibility, rather than everybody takes responsibility together. So it starts from culture, it starts from managing on a different level. And for me, it's hopefully, there's enough people who are trying to solve this problem together to make interesting solutions around it. I think with AI, open source will be the main way of solving this, because I see a lot more people coming out of the woodshed and creating interesting stuff. Because now that generating stuff is so easy on AI, a lot of things will be open source, and I hope that will be one of the biggest solution points.
Thank you.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think the Singapore Cybersecurity Agency, the commissioner, David Koh, one of his favorite lines is, cybersecurity is a team sport. Everyone has a part to play, right? So it's not just the CEO or the CISO, but the employees and us as users as well when it comes to wallets and making sure that we don't put all our eggs in one basket, right? Okay, you guys have any more questions? No? Okay, so if I could just...
Can we ask questions the other way?
Yeah, sure.
How many of you use AI in your daily work today? All right, okay, brilliant. How many of you are allowed to take work data and put into the AI model? Very much, okay.
Allowed to
or doing it. I think that's good. How many are taking work questions or work data and put that into the AI model and get responses from that? Yeah, a bit.
Non-secret stuff.
Not in a private way, but that's the thing, right? So if you look at some of the discussions that have been here, banks, for instance, brilliant example, right? So can I just pick down OpenAI and let everyone use it? Good question, right? I maybe shouldn't. If I don't really know my governance and my privacy, I maybe shouldn't, because who's training on the data? Well, OpenAI, now it's just an example. Anthropic, Mistral, whoever you choose, right? Gemini, whatnot. So most companies say, okay, then I need to buy a model, right? I need to run it myself, right? I need to host it and have it inside. Is it still good enough? That's a good question. But how, based on maybe even your question, how do I teach people to understand what should I put into this model and what shouldn't I put into this model, right? Brilliant example, if I go into OpenAI and Mistral and I search for Volkswagen's code in how they do emission testing, I will have it fully open to me because somebody uploaded the code base into the model, right? Yeah. How do I teach that? And I think one thing is security, another thing is a lot of governance, right? And a lot of teaching. And the question is, if we all take information differently, maybe it's gamification. I know a lot of the European sites now goes into gamification, especially around banking, saying, you will try to be hacked as part of the work. We actually have people sitting trying to hack you as part of your job, because we're gamifying some of this to help you understand what can and what can't you do at the same time, right? And then it structures around that protection mechanism of saying, well, if I'm a bank, or if I'm an insurance company, or pharma company, or something else, maybe my data should never leave the premise of where I exist, right? Yeah. And have that as a step one, right?
You're right, and because we're still trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
There's a larger blanket policy that do not put any word-related content into GPT or any other source. So that's that's policy that we have created.
Yes.
And what you realize is a lot of people still do the buy left and put it into their phones and put it up on it anyway. So I've heard a lot of stories about insecurity operation centers. So, which is even worse. So I think this is where, again, down to human education. So again, it's a practice, right? So right now, the reason why I'm interested in this topic as well is I'm aggressively looking for on-prem solutions for companies because it will happen. So you're better off getting a better solution rather than trying to do the buy left. I will leave people to do the buy left, which is naturally what most people do. So yeah, just wanted to share it.
Okay, cool, yes. No, I like the idea of gamification. It really reminds me of the fact that some people say that we're already in a game, you know, right?
Yeah.
Life is a game. Life is a game, right? Yeah, so it's just another game. So joking aside, let's just have one quick takeaway from each of our panelists. So for our audience out there to go back to their organization or to go back to their daily lives in terms of how they can protect themselves, their money from hackers.
I think for me, it's your strongest link is your weakest link, and vice versa. And in an organizational setting, big bank, maybe you may feel you're very secure, but what about your fintech suppliers? So I actually help through the whole global supply chain, and so we've also built a software to help actually protect SMBs, because we identify SMBs as most vulnerable, to attacks. And across the whole global supply chain, if one of your suppliers is hacked, it then goes and flows all the way up to you as the enterprise buyer. Yeah. So just because you as the enterprise is well protected, you think you have the processes and all in place, what about your suppliers? And back to your question, which is a good question, don't enforce it on them, guide them, help them. Because they're struggling, because the poor SMBs don't really understand cybersecurity like we do, right? They just want to understand how do I get hacked? Can I get prevented? Can I get the defense against hacking? And what tool is it out there that is affordable for me to get this protection? That's all they want to get. Right?
Yeah, all right. So in our work with our institutional clients, we just usually tell them to focus on 3 areas, right? Have in place good security systems, right? Multi-layer security, defense, and web. Processes extremely important. Always have in place a check and balance, right? So that a single party, or even if 1 or 2 persons get compromised, it will not lead to a total wreck of the your funds. And that several things like what MS will always tell the clients, make sure that there's proper segregation of duties, segregation of assets. So public process is very important, and last but not least, users must always be educated and they must be aware, and there's always proper training. And if you can bring this together, then it will go a long way to prevent things like what we've seen for Bybit and all the big hacks.
Great, thanks.
Brilliant notes. I'll take the technical side then, because I know the rest is coming here. There exists so much open audited on protocols, on designs, and everything else. Inventing your own security is always a danger. There is definitely companies that needs to do it, but they are very much specialized in doing it. Follow something like NIST. Make sure you actually go in the door and saying, well, there is actually world cryptographers saying, we know how this breaks, we have solutions for it, maybe I should try to follow that design. And I think using the time of taking those technical means as part of it is also something that very quickly make sure you don't lose 1.5 billion USD somewhere, right? And then you need to do all the rest at the same time.
Great stuff. So I think for me, I always go back to people, PPT, people versus technology, but I always go back to people because that's where it starts and stops. So again, I wrote the book because I was trying to address the fact that people, so it's going to be open source, I will launch it soon, plus some other versions. I relate business goals with cybersecurity because every time people look at the technical controls, they're like, what do I do with this? And then when you are able to relate back to the business goals of the company, for example, you're already making revenue from Fintech or you're working banks. Okay, here are your risk factors. Here are all the points in which people attack you on. Now you know what to protect because it's related back to your goals. You have revenue goals, you have maintenance goals, you have operation goals. You have all those different elements. You're able to break down each of those parts to be able to communicate with people. Because that's the most important part. If people don't understand why you do it, they won't want to go with you. So I think this is really, really important, and which is why, again, that's why I'm saying, because it's open source, I'm allowing everybody to use the framework. It's, check it out, but I think the other part about this is, with the, and I want to bring in the AI part of it also because I'm also releasing another free regulations framework coming up for AI. Feel free to watch out for that as well because it actually covers all the different jurisdictions for AI. And then you can start seeing all the common applications and seeing how adoption of AI can be done with best practices. You'll be amazed. EU AI Act has so much great best practices in there, but none of us probably have sat down and read through it. So there's a lot of different references, and it's actually possible to find your way around this. And I think, again, it's all down to education and whether we have accessibility of information. I think it's really what we focus on.
Well, the EU AI regulations is about like 400, 500 pages, so yeah.
Small pages.
Yeah, small thing, yeah.
Like a book about technology.
Yeah, exactly. So it's alright, I've read it. Right, and actually, okay, it's probably quite fitting that I'm lucky last because I think like my points are basically a combination of what everyone has already said. I'll just reinforce it again with the whole like governance, yes, it's and regulations, and funny enough, from blockchain is supposed to be deregulated industry, but there needs to be some sort of regulations as well. So yeah, governance, and don't shy away from it. There is actually much use cases in there. Quantifying your risk and creating all that overall storytelling that is very important to everyone in the business and organization. And then like there's always help out there, by the way. I mean, and I think Mark, you put it down right. First of all, we have some clients that actually have created their own custom frameworks, and I was like, why? Like they've done it ages ago. But yes, there are some great resources out there, great organizations. I'm sure our names are in here, so I'm sure if you connect with any of us on LinkedIn and everything like that, and I'm opening myself out as well. Like absolutely, come around. I'm sorry, have a chat. Like happy to help.
Cool. All right. Okay. So thank you everybody for your time and also for your takeaways. I'm very conscious that we are finished over time, so we need to wrap this up. Okay. So thank you for your kind attention, and as they say, they will be around to answer your questions. Thank you.